My assignment will be on drug legalization. Drug legalization. Why or why not? Legalizing drugs is a controversial topic. Due to the many pros and cons, the pros being if we were to legalize drugs such as methamphetamines, MDMA, marijuana, etc., then we can monitor its distribution and manufacturing for safer production. But there are cons, such as the health risks that many of these drugs bring, such as kidney failure, heart problems, and liver damage. Other such cons are mood and personality changes, and some of these drugs can make you more aggressive and cause depression. Why we should legalize drugs. If we were to legalize drugs, we could focus more on rehabilitation. Take Portugal for an example. They have legalized all drugs and only focus on rehabilitation. Portugal drug-related HIV and AIDS have significantly decreased over the past 19 years with their Drug Decriminalization Act. Portugal has a very different approach compared to the USA, as they have drug criminalization with over 1.4 million arrests each year. The US has started to make the changes in places like Oregon, where they have started to legalize drugs such as marijuana. My stance on drug legalization and why. I think that we should legalize drugs. If we were to legalize drugs, we could use funding from the criminal justice system to support mental health care and rehabilitation. If we were to legalize all drugs, we could safely distribute drugs without having to worry about the harmful and even deadly chemicals that are in these hard drugs, such as fentanyl. We would also be able to regulate the distribution by setting a limit to the amount you are allowed to use. We could also tax compensation of drugs and use the money to support mental health care and addiction services. We could also use some of these drugs for medical purposes, such as marijuana and small doses of hallucinogenic drugs, such as LSD. There's evidence to support these drugs help reduce pain and anxiety. Potential harmful effects of legalizing drugs. There are still risks in legalizing drugs, such as LSD, heroin, methamphetamines, etc. If we were to legalize it, it would still be difficult to regulate the usage of these drugs. People will still get addicted to these drugs. There will still be a risk that children could access these dangerous substances, even if legalized. As we know, not all parents are protective of their children. Punishment is not effective. Punishment is one of the least effective ways to change behavior. Trauma-informed research tells us that punishment is ineffective because it does not address the underlying needs or build new skills. The best strategy to prevent addiction is through early intervention and mental health care. When children and youth are well cared for and have access to mental health resources, they are less vulnerable to addiction. The economic growth and change of legalizing drugs. If we were to legalize drugs, this would lead to further growth in the economy. By legalizing drugs, we could open up more opportunities for jobs. This will also lead to higher taxations that we can put into rehabilitation for these drugs. In Colorado alone, they've collected more than $302 million in 2019 for medical marijuana sales. Sales in the US alone were $12.2 billion for only marijuana. It was also found that in 2017, the legal cannabis contributed $80 million to the local economy. Childhood experiences. The Center for Disease Control has done some recent research that links adversity in childhood, example, witnessing domestic violence, neglect, as a significant cause for mental health and addiction issues. For adults, if we want to make a difference in people's lives by reducing addiction and mental health, we need to put our resources into supporting children and youth with childhood trauma rather than law and order approaches. Thank you for listening.